While costs are rising, artist fees are not, and tickets to regular shows are harder to move than ever. Many fans aren't ready to return to the crowded mosh. Others are dealing with the cost of living crisis, and with the exception of blockbuster shows, people who do buy tickets are tending to buy them last minute, creating a cash flow problem for artists. When you're scared, your body will typically try to take in more sensory information, so your face will open up as you breathe more deeply and scan the environment with your eyes. On the other hand, when you're disgusted, you'll generally reject sensory information. For noble and very understandable reasons, we've come to associate maturity and kindness with a capacity not to give up on people. But this broad and generous truth can be in danger of missing out on an important caveat that health and maturity may also require a subtle capacity to give up on one or two people. Social media is a powerful tool for making people feel more knowledgeable and may have benefits for people's mental health. Feeling smart can improve self-esteem, commented Dr. Ward. Indeed, studies have shown that news sharing can lead to social learning and political engagement, encouraging people to take more active roles in their communities. People with generally sensitive skin have local reactions to chemicals, dyes, and fragrances present in products that come into contact with their skin. They may also get rashes or irritation from clothing or friction. Some people are allergic to certain substances and may react on their skin. The idea behind recycling is simple. By breaking old products down and converting them into something usable again, we conserve natural resources. Sadly, it's not that simple. Recycling is deeply entwined with our economic system, and right now doesn't make much economic sense. It often costs more to recycle than it does to just throw things away, which is bad news for the environment. A huge shopping revolution is happening in China right now. For instance, e-commerce in China is soaring. It's been growing at twice the speed of the United States, and a lot of the growth is coming from mobile. Every month, 500 million consumers are buying on mobile phones, and to put that into context, that is a total population of the United States, UK and Germany combined. There's a lot of research out there that suggests social media are a useful tool to stay connected to others. In fact, those who use social media more also report feeling more social support. However, all of this comes with a huge caveat: we simply don't know about cause and effect. The teleology and historical contingency of biology make it unique among the sciences. Both of these features stem from perhaps biology's only general guiding principle, evolution. It depends on chance and randomness, but natural selection gives it the appearance of intention and purpose. Animals are drawn to water not by some magnetic attraction, but because of their instinct to survive. In the not-so-distant past, society shunned people with mental health conditions. Some people believed that evil spirits or divine retribution were responsible for mental illness. Although this way of thinking has been extricated from society in much of the world, it still casts a long shadow. Environmental damage does not affect all people equally. For this reason, some people may feel anxiety around ecological issues more intensely. Some parts of the world are more vulnerable to the effects of extreme weather, including coastal communities and low-lying areas. Particularly, people whose livelihoods depend on the environment, such as those with jobs in fishing, tourism, and agriculture, are more likely to be affected. Since its founding, America has enjoyed population growth famously fueled by high immigration rates, but Americans have historically had large families compared to other countries as well. Birth rates today have fallen to their lowest point in history. While birth rates have historically been connected to economic cycles, the present decline is happening during good economic times. To understand how sharing affects a person's subjective and objective knowledge, the researchers gave a group of students the opportunity to read and share a range of news articles. The students then had to rate their subjective knowledge of each article before completing 3 multiple-choice questions that assessed their objective knowledge. A lullaby or cradle song is a soothing song or piece of music that is usually played for children. The purposes of lullabies vary. In some societies they are used to pass down cultural knowledge or tradition. Lullabies can be found in many countries, and have existed since ancient times. In fact, a lot of what we perceive as flavor comes from odor molecules that float up to our smell receptors through our mouths. And as with taste, studies have shown the visual cues we get from color help us identify smells more quickly and accurately. In fact, one study found that the source of a smell doesn't have to be the corresponding color. Successful economies and cultures are built on trust, but a number of high-profile data breaches and privacy intrusions have caused anxiety for consumers. New legislation may be needed to bolster confidence in the digital marketplace, but we've got to be thoughtful about it, so we don't strangle the golden goose that we call the Internet. Eco-anxiety refers to a fear of environmental damage or ecological disaster. This sense of anxiety is largely based on the current and predicted future state of the environment and human-induced climate change. Anxiety around environmental issues may stem from the awareness of a rising risk of extreme weather events, losses of livelihood or housing, fears for future generations, and feelings of helplessness. Liver cancer can be fatal, but experts are still working to understand how to best screen for and prevent liver cancer. Data from a recent study suggests that a diet high in processed fiber could increase some people's liver cancer risk. Testing for the level of bile acids could help identify people at risk of developing liver cancer who may need a lower intake of fiber. People might think that they're anxious about math because they're bad at it, but it's often the other way around. They're doing poorly in math because they're anxious about it. Some psychologists think that's because math anxiety decreases a cognitive resource called working memory. That's the short-term memory system that helps you organize the information you need to complete a task. The term core competence described a diversified corporation as a large tree. The core products are the trunk and major limbs. The business units are smaller branches, and the end products are the leaves. The core competence is the root system that provides nourishment and stability. It's essentially what your organization knows about coordinating production and technology. The carbon is essential to life on Earth, but scientists still struggle to grasp its complexities. Most research to date has focused on major sources of the greenhouse gas carbon dioxide, and the use of fossil fuels. A new study has come to the counterintuitive conclusion that plants might accumulate more carbon in the presence of predators and herbivores. Comparing APRs may be an effective way to shop for a loan. However, you must compare similar loan products for the same loan amount. For example, compare two 30-year fixed-rate loans for $100,000. Loan A, with an APR of 8.35%, is less costly than Loan B, with an APR of 8.56%. Over the loan term, before you decide on a loan, you should also consider the upfront cash you will be required to pay for each of the two loans. Psychology is the study of cognitions, emotions, and behavior. Psychologists are involved in a variety of tasks. Many spend their careers designing and performing research to understand how people behave in specific situations, how and why we think the way we do, and how emotions develop and what impact they have on our interactions with others. Bolstered by the result of laboratory experiments, researchers dared to say that gaming might be mentally enriching. These scholars are the first to admit that games could be addictive, and indeed part of their research explores how games connect to the reward circuit of human beings. Eating a handful of almonds a day significantly increases the production of butyrate, a short-chain fatty acid that promotes gut health. Whole almond eaters had an additional 1.5 bowel movements per week compared to the other groups. Eating almonds could also benefit those with constipation. Every few seconds, our eyelids automatically shutter and our eyeballs roll back in their sockets. So why doesn't blinking plunge us into intermittent darkness and light? New research shows that the brain works extra hard to stabilize our vision despite our fluttering eyes. When our eyeballs roll back in their sockets during a blink, they don't always return to the same spot when we reopen our eyes. COVID-19 pandemic is linked to early onset of puberty in some girls. Several studies suggest that the number of girls starting puberty early has more than doubled amid the coronavirus outbreak, and experts are unsure about exactly why. A stationary bike workout is a low-impact workout that uses smooth movements to strengthen bones and joints without putting much pressure on them. Because your feet don't lift off the pedals with a stationary bike, this option is kinder to your joints, but it still provides a challenging and effective workout. In every cultivated language there are two great classes of words which, taken together, comprise the whole vocabulary. First, there are those words with which we become acquainted in daily conversation, which we learn from the members of our own family and from our familiar associates, and which we should know and use even if we could not read or write. Globalization refers to a set of changes rather than a single change. Many of these changes are social, cultural and political rather than purely economic, and one of the main drivers in addition to the global marketplace is the communication revolution. The Dow Jones Industrial Average reports the average stock price of 30 large, publicly traded U.S. companies. It tends to reflect the state of the stock market as a whole, though its name would lead you to believe the Dow Jones Industrial Average is made up of only industrial companies. The Dow Jones Industrial Average in fact contains stocks across many industries, not all of which are industrial. The businesses represented include financial, food, technology, retail, heavy equipment, oil, chemical, pharmaceutical, consumer goods, and entertainment. Summer research scholarships offer a unique opportunity for external organizations, academics, and students to work together in research. Working with globally recognized researchers in a local setting, students gain valuable real-world experience as well as an insight into what research is all about. Don't give out any personal information, like account numbers and social security numbers, to anyone over the telephone unless you initiate the call and you know you're dealing with a reputable organization or firm. A common telemarketing scheme is to get you on the phone, supposedly to discuss a gift you've won, but really to obtain your checking account information. If successful, this person can use the information to issue a bank draft that deducts funds from your account. Certain types of methodology are more suitable for some research projects than others. For example, the use of questionnaires and surveys is more suitable for quantitative research, whereas interviews and focus groups are more often used for qualitative research purposes. Political scholars had historically recognized the social love of the mass media. The impact of the mass media on the electorate and governing process has greatly increased over the last 50 years. Tomorrow, the mass media will become the central nervous system for your society and the major source of public information. We can see from the X-rays that at an early stage of painting, a window was painted at the left of the portrait. It seems that there may have been two windows in the initial design for the portrait, or that the window was moved at an early stage. Fast growth in both world energy demand and carbon dioxide emissions due to fossil fuels has resulted in search for alternative sources which are not only renewable but also environment-friendly. One of these alternative sources is eco-fuels, which are solid, liquid, or gaseous fuels primarily produced from biomass. The solid eco-fuels include wood, animal dung, municipal waste, and energy crops. One of the major factors influencing future home design will be the probable change in climate, with hotter summers, colder winters, and the possibility of floods. Consequently, houses will be built with better insulation and will also need ways of keeping cool in hot weather, whether that's air conditioning or more shading of windows. International Women's Day is marked on March 8 every year. Countries around the world celebrate it to give credit to the economic, political and social achievements of women and to show respect to their contributions in the development of their countries. It's only in the beginning of the 20th century that the day was officially and internationally acknowledged due to the rapid industrialization and the social protest that it accompanied. Changes in climate affect, for example, the plant and animal life of a given area. The presence of coal beds in North America and Europe along with evidence of glaciation in these same areas indicates that they must have experienced alternately warmer and colder climates than they now possess. Private mortgage insurance and government mortgage insurance protect the lender against default and enable the lender to make a loan which the lender considers a higher risk. Lenders often require mortgage insurance for loans where the down payment is less than 20% of the sales price. You may be billed monthly, annually, by an initial lump sum, or through some combination of these practices for your mortgage insurance premium. When someone commits a criminal act, we always hope the punishment will match the offense. But when it comes to one of the cruelest crimes, animal fighting, things rarely work out that way. Dogfighting victims are tortured and killed for profit and sport, yet their criminal abusers often receive a minimal sentence for causing a lifetime of pain. The concept of writing and depositing checks as a method of arranging payments soon spread to England and elsewhere, but not without resistance. Many people in the 16th and 17th centuries still had doubts about trusting their hard-earned money to strangers in little pieces of paper. In the United States, checks are said to have first been used in 1681 when cash-strapped businessmen in Boston mortgaged their land to a fund, against which they could write checks. A hernia is a weakness or opening in the abdominal wall, which often results in soft tissue such as fat protruding through the abdominal muscles and occupying space under the skin. The mechanism of the hernia is similar to what happens with a bulge in a damaged tire, where the inner tube, normally contained by the hard rubber of the tire, extends through a thin or weakened place. The benefits of home fencing are not only as a barrier between the area of the house and the surrounding environment. In simple words, a fence is a formation or structure that is above the ground and is generally vertical, with the intention of limiting an area or protecting everything inside the fence, from threatening danger from outside the fence. We've spent a lot of money over the last 70 years on flood control, and it's protected millions of people and has saved us billions of dollars. We've built dams to hold back the waters. We've built levees to keep the water off the people, and we've raised the ones that were originally started in 1718. Barangaroo is the future of Sydney. It will become a spectacular waterfront precinct and a place that everyone in NSW can be proud of. Valued at over $6 billion odd, Barangaroo is Sydney's largest redevelopment project this century and will evolve over the next 10 to 20 years. Globalization refers to a set of changes rather than a single change. Many of these changes are social, cultural and political rather than purely economic, and one of the main drivers in addition to the global marketplace is the communication revolution. Association between meatless diet and depression. Participants who excluded meat from their diet were found to have a higher prevalence of depressive episodes as compared to participants who consumed meat. This association is independent of socioeconomic, lifestyle factors, and nutrient deficiencies. Astronomers announced that they have finally assembled an image of the supermassive black hole at the center of our galaxy. This image shows a bright ring surrounding the darkness, the telltale sign of the shadow of the black hole. It reveals the turbulent, twisting region immediately surrounding the black hole in new detail. It is normally expected that the final version of your thesis, which must be submitted to the university library in both hard copy and electronic form, will be freely available to the public. Once in the library, your thesis may be consulted, borrowed and copied in accordance with the regulations. The construction of dams is labor-intensive. Before construction begins, water is diverted or prevented from moving through the construction site. After water is diverted, the foundation area is excavated, and sediments that will act as the foundation are repaired. This is done to ensure the sediments won't shift or fail as a result of the load of the dam and reservoir. Bitcoin has become a hot, controversial topic, but what is it exactly and why is it getting so much attention? As of 2014, Bitcoin is the most popular form of digital currency. Bitcoin with an uppercase B, is the system of how payments are made, while the lowercase Bitcoin refers to the unit of online currency. Unlike traditional currency, Bitcoin is not regulated by a central organization. The increase in implementation costs is not the only price you pay for commission-based planning. You may also pay in the form of poor advice. After all, when a financial advisor earns most of his or her money as a financial salesperson, the product sales tend to drive the process. In the worst-case scenario, the planning becomes nothing more than window dressing to attract clients for the real money-making business of selling products. Your subject outlines are a good place to go to find information about which textbooks to buy. You will usually be given one of these for each subject in the first lecture, but if you are missing one or need one earlier, then you should contact the subject coordinator. Shadowed the core of the problem was the immense disparity between the country's productive capacity and the ability of people to consume. Great innovations in productive techniques during and after the war raised the output of industry beyond the purchasing capacity of U.S. farmers and wage earners. We want a recreation in adulthood of what it felt like to be administered to and indulged. In a secret part of our minds, we picture someone who will understand our needs, bring us what we want, to be immensely patient and sympathetic to us, act selflessly, and make it all better. Many individuals have unwittingly contributed to this book through sharing ideas with us as colleagues, students, practitioners, tourists, and residents of destination areas. They are too numerous to thank individually, and indeed, it is not possible to isolate exactly their specific contributions. The popular trend of revolving restaurants and bars began sometime in the early 60s after the successful launch of such towering creations as the Space Needle, but as the novelty wore off, the mechanical upkeep and maintenance of such ventures proved to be too costly for some entrepreneurs over time, and many once famous icons like Encounter Restaurant have since closed. The prime responsibility for nuclear safety must rest with the person or organization responsible for these activities. Regulating safety is a national responsibility. However, radiation risks may transcend national borders, and international cooperation serves to promote and enhance safety globally by exchanging experience and by improving capabilities to mitigate any harmful consequences. A trademark may be defined as a word, letter, device, or symbol, as well as any combination of these, that is used in connection with merchandise and that points distinctly to the origin of the goods. Certificates of registration of trademarks are issued under the seal of the Patent and Trademark Office and may be registered by the owner if he or she is engaged in interstate or foreign commerce. Federal jurisdiction over trademarks arises under the Commerce Clause of the Constitution. The committee would also like to express its gratitude to the independent assessors who joined the committee for consideration of each case. Their expertise and advice play a vital role in our work. A list of independent assessors who attended meetings during this reporting year is included at Appendix D. Despite many similarities with literary political debates in other nations, there are also ways in which the cultural and political situation in Scotland has left the study of Scottish literature in a significantly different condition from that of literary studies in many other parts of the world. When someone commits a criminal act, we always hope the punishment will match the offense. But when it comes to one of the cruelest crimes, animal fighting, things rarely work out that way. Dogfighting victims are tortured and killed for profit and sport, yet their criminal abusers often receive a minimal sentence for causing a lifetime of pain. Most bond funds have credit risk, which is the risk that companies or other issuers whose bonds are owned by the fund may fail to pay their debts, including the debt owed to the holder of their bonds. Some funds have little credit risk, such as those that invest in insured bonds or U.S. Treasury bonds. But be careful, nearly all bond funds have interest rate risk, which means that the market value of the bonds they hold will go down when interest rates go up. Because of this, you can lose money in any bond fund, including those that invest only in insured bonds or treasury bonds. Researchers found that couples with higher satisfaction in relationship had greater neural synchronization while watching marriage-related clips, but they don't know whether there is selection-based behaviors arising from similar brain activity, or whether couples evolve over time to develop it. Every few seconds, our eyelids automatically shutter and our eyeballs roll back in their sockets. So why doesn't blinking plunge us into intermittent darkness and light? New research shows that the brain works extra hard to stabilize our vision despite our fluttering eyes. When our eyeballs roll back in their sockets during a blink, they don't always return to the same spot when we reopen our eyes. Frogs have excellent night vision and are very sensitive to movement. The bulging eyes of most frogs allow them to see in front, to the sides, and partially behind them. When a frog swallows food, it pulls its eyes down into the roof of its mouth, to help push the food down its throat. A common way of permitting others to use an intellectual property right is to give express permission for it. This can be done in return for financial remuneration. In such cases, the holder of an intellectual property right is often referred to as granting a license to use what the holder otherwise has exclusive rights to, subject to certain conditions. Using artificial intelligence, researchers can create photorealistic images from three-dimensional scenery, paving the way for better driving simulators and better testing of driverless cars. It's not easy to make a wind turbine blade. Conventional blades require a lot of labor. They are a sandwich composed of fiberglass, sheets of balsa wood and a chemical called an epoxy thermoset resin. A heat oven is required to give blades the proper shape, strength, smoothness and flexibility to catch the wind and turn the turbine. In an environment of rapid change, technological innovations and increasing business competitiveness has highlighted the growing importance of management development. In particular, the general movement towards great employee involvement and making things happen through people has emphasized an integrating rather than a controlling style of management. Children with special learning needs refer to children with learning difficulties, a behavior disorder and/or disability. These children have diverse abilities and learning needs. Parents or caregivers are often the first to notice that their child's development is delayed or that their child is having problems at school. Most people do not realize that some banks literally make money by giving loans without having money on deposit. The system is called fractional reserve banking and is used in most economies. It sounds as though it is safe because it says that banks have to keep a fraction of their deposits with the reserve bank. Giving pocket money to children as young as 4 or 5 years helps them start learning about the value of money and money management. When children get pocket money, they have to make choices about spending or saving. Pocket money can also help children learn about consequences, including the consequences of losing money or spending it unwisely. Letting your children make a few mistakes is part of the learning process. This report includes a huge swath of macroeconomics, such as the effects of tax reform, a new industrial policy, and understanding how to deal with the uncertainty inherent in global financial market. But it also covers key areas of microeconomic policies, such as boosting laggardly rates of productivity. Programs, such as delicate wash or color wash, are one of the features of washing machines, particularly fully automatic washing machines, which gives you the choice when it comes to how you want to wash your clothes. If you're washing with a certain fabric, then programs help you find the optimal washing conditions for your laundry needs, from selecting the right wash temperature to setting up your washing timing. Particle accelerators produce and accelerate beams of charged particles, such as electrons, protons and ions, of atomic and subatomic size. They are used not only in fundamental research for an improved understanding of matter, but also in plethora of socio-economic applications related to environmental monitoring, food quality, energy and aerospace technologies. The most significant difference between an eating disorder and disordered eating is whether or not a person's symptoms and experiences align with the criteria defined by the American Psychiatric Association. The term disordered eating is a descriptive phrase, not a diagnosis. As the inventor of alternating current technology, Nikola Tesla played a paramount role in the electricity used to power the entire world. Tesla also worked diligently on a dream of supplying electrical power without wires. Thomas Edison was also instrumental in shaping society today with his inventions. Edison's design of the inside of the light bulb was the crucial key to making a light that would stay lit for hours instead of going out almost immediately. Copyright is a form of protection provided by the laws of the United States to the creators of original works of authorship, including literary, dramatic, musical, artistic, and certain other intellectual works. This protection is available to both published and unpublished works. The 1976 Copyright Act generally gives the owner of a copyright the exclusive right to do and to authorize others to do. Many floods take hours to come into full effect, so they provide people with time to evacuate safely while salvaging as many of their valuable possessions as they can. Sometimes, however, floods generate in minutes and give little warning to their formation. These are known as flash floods, and can be extremely dangerous. Flash floods are the top one weather-related cause of death in the United States. With all the advertisements for snazzy new cars and low monthly payments, it is becoming increasingly difficult to resist the siren call beckoning us to our local dealership, without exploring the compulsions that underlie the American need for constant renewal. It is nonetheless apparent that we are a society that likes to drive newer cars. The average American trades cars every 3 to 4 years. Now that competition among manufacturers has intensified, many are offering a new enticement: the short-term lease. Efficiency is not your friend when it comes to cognitive growth. In order to keep our brains making new connections and keep them active, you need to keep moving on to another challenging activity as soon as you reach the point of mastery in the one you are engaging in. The first local decision-making accord between the Merdipaki Regional Assembly and the NSW government was signed at Government House on February 19, 2015. The accord was signed on behalf of the state of NSW by the NSW Minister for Aboriginal Affairs and on behalf of the Merdipaki Regional Assembly by Mr. Sam Jeffries, Chair of the Assembly. It outlines agreed actions to address the needs and priorities negotiated between the Assembly and the NSW government. The problem is that increased immune vigilance has a side effect: allergies. Our speculation is that this is some kind of trade-off. In the past you needed to resist some kind of pathogen, and the trade-off or sacrifice you have to make is increased responsiveness to non-pathogenic allergens. So next time some of you get the springtime sniffles, blame your distant ancestor, the one with the heavy brow ridge. The NSW government is looking to partner with Australia's best hospital operators to upgrade hospitals in Mayland, Gong, Shell Harbour and Bowral. Sharing construction costs with partner operators means the new hospitals will be built faster and cost taxpayers less, with savings reinvested into health services. Environmental, individual and social traits of free-ranging raccoons influence performance in cognitive testing. Shy raccoons are better learners than bold ones, a result that has implications for our relationship with urban wildlife. In every cultivated language there are two great classes of words which, taken together, comprise the whole vocabulary. First, there are those words with which we become acquainted in daily conversation, which we learn from the members of our own family and from our familiar associates, and which we should know and use even if we could not read or write. The most obvious change is that 46% of college undergraduates are now women. When I went there, it was only the third year that women had been admitted, and then seemingly grudgingly, about 70% of students were male, and if there was a woman tutor she must have been a male impersonator. The population of Greater Western Sindhi is projected to grow by 43% between 2016 and 2036. This is why the NSW government is investing in projects that are priorities for the local community, such as the West Connects Motorway, Sydney Metro Northwest Westmont Hospital redevelopment, North Connects Motorway and new fire stations at Windsor, Ropes Crossing, Oran Park, Marsden Park and Mount Druitt. Bullying can involve humiliation, domination, intimidation, victimization and all forms of harassment, including that based on sex, race, disability, homosexuality or transgender. Bullying of any form or for any reason can have long-term effects on those involved, including bystanders. Since the beginning, the Eiffel Tower drew attention and served as the theater for numerous events in the life of Paris and France. The tower can be seen from many and various points around Paris and its suburbs. It is photographed, filmed and replicated in all kinds of circumstances. It naturally slipped into the role of symbolizing France in the collective imagination and in literature and poetry. A patent, in the most general sense, is a document issued by a government, conferring some special right or privilege. The term is now restricted mainly to patents for inventions and, occasionally, land patents. A patent is granted only upon receipt of a complete, regularly filed application and the appropriate fees, and upon determination that the invention is new, useful, and, in view of the prior art, unobvious to one skilled in the art. The disclosure must be of such nature as to enable others to reproduce the invention. In the past, wars have led to inflation and higher commodity prices. Fighting disrupts trade and prevents raw materials from being shipped from one country to another. In Second World War Britain, a banana was the highest of luxury. The role of women in promoting voluntary medical male circumcision uptake. Research reveals the important role played by women in influencing men to undergo circumcision. Women are also motivated to convince men to undergo male circumcision because of the benefits associated with them, such as reduction of HIV transmission and cervical cancer. Anyone who creates something artistic, such as fashion photos on the shoe, automatically has copyright to them. It consists of a financial right that is possible to license or sell, and a non-profit right that cannot be agreed away. The latter means that you always have the right to be mentioned in connection with your work being used. Every morning, no matter how late he had been up, my father rose at 5:30, went to his study, wrote for a couple of hours, made us all breakfast, read the paper with my mother, and then went back to work for the rest of the morning. Many years passed before I realized that he did this by choice, for a living, and that he was not unemployed or mentally ill. The central idea of this book concerns our blindness with respect to randomness, particularly the large deviations. Why do we, scientists or non-scientists, hotshots or regular Joes, tend to see the pennies instead of the dollars? Why do we keep focusing on the minutiae, not the possible significant large events, in spite of the obvious evidence of their huge influence? Payroll employment is the number of jobs in the economy, determined by a survey of businesses. Household surveys generate estimates of employment and unemployment, which taken together represent the labor force, or workforce. The unemployment rate is the percentage of the workforce without a job. People who are not working and not seeking employment are not included in the workforce. Generally, the economy is improving when employment rises and unemployment falls.